Bash is coming soon, isn't it?
Search together. IPSA. We're not just a name in a directory. Local minds with national synergy.
Not just a name in a directory, no. IPSA or IPSA, the Independent Personal Search Agents, the association thereof. Hamish is the current chairman. Esteemed member and consultant Valerie Bennett of Home Information Services is with us today. And we are covering a topic which will probably come up again and again, the changing role of the search agent. And of course, to start us off, Hamish McClay.
Well, good afternoon, all. The weather's unfolding as the week progresses. There's every chance we could have some good weather for the bank holiday.
Huzzah!
No guarantee, no guarantee. I'm hoping for. I could do with going out in a bit of sunshine and sort of ignoring work for a few days.
Hope springs eternal.
Which is absolutely great. And by so doing, I'll get away from all this bleeding data that comes through. I think we have a challenge with data anyway, because the big challenge is this AI. It's become more and more sort of used throughout all industries, not just the search.
Pervasive. It is pervasive.
Absolutely pervasive. And because of that, people no longer even have to press a button. Automatically, some bloody stupid message comes out to you that you never wanted. Yet it's come out automatically. And it says, do not reply. So you can't send them back and tell them what a clown you are because the message was stupid or wasn't even required. But nobody's even pressed a button. They did that 6 months ago, and it's still sort of going on. And what we're doing, and it'll be interesting because we're speaking about this a little bit more tomorrow as well, because there's an impact on just about everybody. And there, of course, what has happened, the way in which we actually carry out our work has changed hideously in some respects, because a lot of people are using AI now in sort of different sort of councils for different aspects of what they are doing. If you like, data is being transferred from a council to the land registry. Land registry, they of course do the best they can in trying to put it together, but their software can only do a certain amount of stuff. So if the council sends them stuff, it goes to land registry, whether it's relevant or not. And it's only when it comes back in, we actually sort of notice, the likes of Val and I will notice when it comes back into the office and you're looking at it before you send the report back to your client to think, well, what the heck has this got to do with it? And to actually sort of find that somehow or other there's something. Now, does it always happen like that? No. But what we need to do, when you go back to the very, very basics, they were seriously different with Val's memories of what's, and it's worth Val saying this again, because there will be people listening who haven't heard this particular story. So what were you doing, or what was your father doing, Val, at the very, very start of collecting data from the council offices?
Yes, before we can pinch and zoom on the screens, what was it that was going on, Val?
Well, back in the day, I'm going back to about 1985, 86.
So just after the dinosaurs, then.
That's the one. When the very first of the big companies thought, they were sort of thinking, hang on, this is something we can get into. And they decided to try and find themselves some agents to do, to go out and do the searches. My dad was one of the first ones.
Right.
The sound has gone.
Oh, Val, your sound has gone. That's very curious. Well, unfortunately, I think we might have to move from
the yellow line and lean over to the counter because they didn't want him having it easy at all.
Val,
when he asked for them to be, translated into English, they were not happy with that at all. But he would get all his information, and knowing that the search was needed, there was a fax machines just about, but there was no computers, not really, not home house computers. So he'd get back in the car, he'd get his big black Imperial typewriter, which he'd picked up from a car boot sale for a couple of pounds, and he'd get his carbon paper, and then he would then type up the report while sitting outside the post box, so then it can go straight off into the post at 5 o'clock or whatever before the last post, so that the people in London could have that search for the next day. So that's going right back. But yeah, I mean, back in the day, the records were that nothing was done by phone, nothing was done by computer. It was you phoned up, you made an appointment as and when at the council's convenience. You went to the council, you got your searches done, you went through. I remember Manchester, and I mean, they just redone up Rochdale Council now, where there's no access to these council buildings anymore. We had free reign. We used to wander around in the lifts, up and down. You didn't get checked by anybody. There was no security then. You wandered around Manchester City Council as you wished, different levels to go and get the different information. And now, how it has changed, goodness me. I mean, now you think, I don't know, for me, I mean, I do try and keep up with all the technology as best I can, and I really, really like all the technology. But there's never, ever a light at the end of the tunnel. There's always something new in an hour's time. You think you're up to date with something, and you think, that's it, it's done, I know where I am, my system is this, it can never be any better. And then an hour later, something else crops up, or somebody whispers something in your ear, and it's all changed again.
And
So
as I always say,
evolving. The whole industry is evolving all the time. And I think it's just as hard for solicitors, for conveyancers, because they don't know where we're up to. Some of the time we don't know where we're up to. The councils haven't got a clue where they're up to. So it does become a very complicated system, in my opinion. And yet there's so much data. Like now, there's obviously all the competent persons, fencers, ICICs. I think there's something like about 25 competent person schemes out there. I could be wrong. I'm sure somebody might tell me. And if that information is there, we do feel obliged that we should be checking all that information. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not checking 25 competent person schemes. I'll check the ones I know. And again, competent persons, they should submit that information to the building control and planning at the council. But then it's up to the council whether they have time or availability to put it on their records. So you don't know whether they've got it or they haven't. So you have to check everything to be able to get the full details. So yeah, very complicated.
So Valerie, we lost you right at the beginning there for a short while.
Talking to yourself, Gareth. Gareth.
Hello. You can hear me, Hamish, yes?
Oh, perfectly.
Okay.
It's about Val's technology.
I'll tell you what. Let's do this.
Oh,
We've lost Gareth.
No, I'm here. It's you. So I will. Yes. Yeah, no problem. Never mind. Hamish, can she hear you at all? Just briefly.
I don't think Val can. You can't. No, she can't hear either of us.
All right, never mind. But we got everything. It was a great story. She always tells the best. I'm just going to quickly see if I can. I've kicked her out. Hopefully she'll come back in again. Maybe you can message her to ask her to come back. But I hope all of you so far have gotten a taste of what it was like before we relied upon Alexa to help us get out of bother every time. Hamish, I know that you are a keen applier of new technologies, but also you're very much a man who likes to recognize the old technologies, the ones that consistently still work for us, that and ensure that we provide real authenticity.
Well, I think that this is the challenge with so much about you. Sometimes don't know what's best to do. It's unfortunate. I mean, AI is becoming ever more aware because of the information which is being fed into it of the task that it needs to be carrying out. However, at this particular sort of stage in time, it cannot do everything. And interestingly, we were at a conference last week. I think one person actually mentioned it, but we've had this in the past, that really, to get everything on board and be able to sort of digitize absolutely everything to do with searches, it's going to take up to something like 2050 to actually sort of get that, because of the and the interesting thing is, like Val just sort of commented there, one of those things is they do change things. Things are added, like the number of competent people. What it is as well, and it's exactly the same as the number of people who are trying to provide searches.
Right.
And there's so many platforms being developed by people who themselves have not carried out searches, so they do not fully understand.
So isn't this the voyage which tends to happen with automation and mechanization in towards mediocrity, whereby instead of and actually in some ways, dare I say it, Hamish, this is a time when then IPSA members can shine, because there is a tendency towards lowest common denominator searches, whereby you've got factory conveyancers just pumping out vast quantities of information without any real discrimination there. This is where an IPSA member can absolutely shine, because you guys are providing, as I've often said, the kite mark of searches, the John Lewis of searches. Sorry, John Lewis, I'm using it in a very positive way, in the sense that rather than providing everything, you're using your great knowledge gained by years and years, having gone through this again and again and seen the patterns, to identify what is really needed. So instead of having everything, you've got the absolutely, chef's kiss of information.
I think this is really, when we speak about the changing role, everybody's aware of the advancement of technology, because as soon as you buy a piece of equipment, it's out of date, because the next piece of equipment you buy is that much more superior to all of that. But the changing role of search agents, and in fact, it's not dissimilar in a way to, mind you, it's much simpler basis, but it's not dissimilar in a way to that which is imposed upon property lawyers, because they are getting more and more things that they are meant to be responsible for.
Right.
To demonstrate the sort of due diligence, to demonstrate that they've got everything right. And all of a sudden, there is an expectation from people who don't know about this. The solicitor needs to be a tax advisor to speak about sort of the land tax, for example. When you also expect to have this knowledge about climate, to have this knowledge about the environment, and all of these things, of course, there are specialists out there. The beauty of it, if you work the system and you work at night collectively, the great advantage, and we're speaking about IPSA now, but the great advantage, if you're speaking to the appropriate service provider, which we actually look at ourselves as being, we're service providers. If there's any query to do with anything to do with searches that we've actually sort of put, local authority searches, we can go straight to the person that compiled that report.
Okay. Well, Val, I'm glad to have you back. Are you with us again?
I know, I don't know where I went. Fell down some rabbit hole somewhere.
Okay. Well, as Hamish was just talking about, it's about building relationships. It's having built up that knowledge base that even in the modern day, with all this great technology, those close relationships you built over the years are still very important.
Absolutely, of course they are. I mean, if we or a client needs something urgently, you want to be able to think that you're the person that can approach whoever needs approaching and say, look, can you help us out? It's a genuine emergency. And you kind of hope that, and I think on the whole, most councils, where they can, they will assist, and they will help out when they know things are genuinely urgent. But yeah, I mean, they've got the pressure. Everybody's got the pressure. A lot of land charges departments now are being scooped into other things, such as elections. They get grabbed up for those things, which delays them. They're all trying to do what HMLR want them to do to be able to get onto their systems. So
Right.
they have a lot of work, going on. But I mean, for instance, it was, you talk about sort of a solicitor. I did a search for somebody, a local person, who then sent it down to somebody in London. I don't know where they were. This person then wasn't convinced that the search had been done on the right property because it was confusing. This chap phones me up, never spoke to him. I then spent half an hour giving him a lesson in how to get onto HMLR, because it was an HMLR council, and to be able to say, look, you know what, mate, you can do this yourself. If you don't believe what the land charges register is, you go on. And I spent half an hour talking him through and explaining how to plot polygons. He'd never drawn a polygon in his life, but it's something that we as search agents now, we're all experts with polygons, I feel. And I was able to talk him through, and he was like, I can't believe that you've given your time to help me do this, because I didn't have a clue. So, that's the benefit there, that he knew somebody that he then rang me. And I gave the time and told him how to do it. But as a solicitor, he didn't have a clue.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Valerie. He doesn't want to be drawing those polygons. He's got no interest in doing that. And I just suspect that over time, when he actually had to try it out for himself, he realizes and probably holds what you do in greater value now. So I suspect in many ways what it's done is act as a real indicator to him as to what really goes on by the scenes. Because I think a lot of these solicitors think, I'll turn it over to the search people and they'll just make it happen. And they put it in a machine and they hit a button and out comes a lot of information. When in actual fact, it's a bit of brain power and a bit of plotting and a bit of defining and searching and looking underneath and lifting the covers up and looking even further that you wouldn't necessarily would think that was. Hamish, I mean, this is something that you've seen, dare I say it, I think the biggest movement in searching has happened over the last 10, 15 years with the attempt at digitization. And I use the word attempt very loosely.
I mean, 100% right. The challenge is that the growth is accelerated, and as a consequence, people are experimenting with things which they assume to work, and they're being told. Councils are being told, for example, we had this terrible sort of situation, and I guess the council members were, because they're not really nice council to actually deal with, those at Bracknell Forest. And they put in some new software in February of this year. And as a consequence of that new software, nobody's had a search since. Neither whether it be an official search, because they can't access the data. And certainly from a land charge, one of our team has actually got, when last speaking, this was about 3 weeks ago, over 100 searches he has that are waiting to actually sort of go through. So this is the challenge with sort of AI. And of course, they've cut down on their staff. Some of their experienced staff have sort of moved on. I mean, the councils have become retired, but also the council are convinced that, well, with the advent of AI, with the advent of all of these wonderful sort of software, they are told this by experts. And one of the things that sort of came out at one of the last conference that we had an expert with AI who actually sort of came on and speak, and he's actually also a qualified solicitor. He's a property solicitor, and he said effectively that everybody could do with an AI specialist within their team, but they have to have the appropriate knowledge to do it. So if you're a solicitor, AI will work for you if you've got somebody who has sort of knowledge of the particular type of work that you do within that particular sort of sphere. Exactly the same. There are hundreds. I don't know how many you get, Val, but there are hundreds of people all the time saying, trying to flog you their methodology of AI, and not a single one of them yet
Yeah, but the trouble is, it's a moving target. Valerie, do you get this coming up all the time?
Yeah, I've learned a lot over the last 6 months because I have been dealing with my IT guys because we've had some ideas and we're developing this and that, which started off as a teeny weeny little pea when I said I needed my data updating. That was fatal. It's now absolutely just massively grown and is now the size of
I bet you wish sometimes you'd kept your mouth shut.
a. And what he's kind of said to me when I go, oh, I've learned AI can do this and AI can do that, and oh, I've been playing with AI, and he's gone, no, you don't want AI, you need automation. Automation is the key to everything. So I've learned lots. AI is not what you need, and I'm saying, yeah, but AI does this and AI. And he messaged me yesterday, and he went, Bal, I've just got an idea. I've just found out something. He says, we're planning possibly, he says, a trip over to China. I went, oh, yeah, very nice. And he said, in China now, he says, they are so far ahead of the rest of the world. He said, so they've now developed robots. And these robots should be capable of literally sitting at an office desk and being able to do your searches and get all the information. Once you tell them what you want, it's like the next step on from AI and from automation. And these robots, he says, they cost about £6,000 to buy. He says, so if you're up for it, he says, we'll go and buy one when we go over there. I'm like, I said, as long as it can make coffee, I'll consider it. But otherwise, I'm not even going down that route. But how amazing that you could actually have a bank of robots sitting at computers doing this work.
Your IT guy, yeah, I think you maybe have been giving wishful thinking. I also spent a lot of time researching is they're not close. They think they are, but they really are not.
I'm very glad to hear that. Thank goodness for that. I don't want to be looking after a little team of robots, do I? You know what?
No, it's not that. The problem is it's false positives is the biggest issue. What robots have got no clue over, they have no ability to deal with is nuance and human nuance. And I think we're probably 5 to 10 years away from that, at least, if not more.
Fascinating that it's gone from a manual typewriter with carbon paper 40 years ago to now the future is going to be AI, automation, and potentially in another 5 or 10 years' time, robots.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be robots even. I think it'll be just a box you plug in the wall and it'll just do it all. But then I think that'll change the whole face of property anyway, and property searching, and it'll become something different. Hamish, thank you so much. Would you care to take us home?
Well, maybe the next time we can invite one of these robots along to one of our podcasts and see what they have to tell us about the future and how good that they are. I must admit, I was working with AI, and I've got a lovely, because my my AI that I use has started calling me Hamish, and as a consequence,
does that warm the cockles of your heart, Hamish?
Well, it does a bit. And in fact, I said, right, can you give me some names, please, that I could call you? Because if we're going to communicate the way that we are, and it came up with this particular list. There are about sort of 6, and they're all sort of male names. And at the bottom was Waxing Gareth. Would you believe it actually said Waxing Gareth?
That I feel honoured.
I'm
more waning than waxing, but yes, it's. We'll move on with that. Wayne is a particularly good name. Could have that. Anyway, yes, thank you so much, Hamish. Everybody watching, I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. We don't have particularly structured conversations on this channel. What we do is to promote empathy with the way in which searches are going on now, the way searches will be going on in the future, and trying to see how that linkage happens, how it can affect you, and more importantly, whether you should be worried about it or maybe just take advantage of it. So if Valerie comes back with her friend from China with 12 robots, all of which making tea and coffee and doing searches, we'll know that the future's come early. Until next time, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and And to our robot overlords, please take me. No. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Search together. IPSA. We're not just a name in a directory. Local minds with national synergy.